Senator from Oklahoma.
I'd ask that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Thank you. I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the budget that's before us. And make a note, just some simple notes. In 73 pages, this budget spends $3.5 trillion in 1 year. That's an astounding amount of money. And it spends $17.9 trillion at a minimum over the next 5 years. This budget is more than just a document full of numbers. It's a statement of priorities. My feeling is that it does not address some of the key fundamental challenges we face as a nation. And in fact, it's going to make some of the challenges that we have worse, because we're going to be spending money that we don't have on things that we don't need. You know, every family in this country today, as we can note by the decreased consumer spending, is making hard choices. They're making priorities. And their priorities are, how do we do the absolute minimum things necessary, and also how do we save? We're going to have the largest savings rate we've had in 40 or 50 years in this country, so we can save for tomorrow. And most of the time, those families aren't just thinking about the adult members of those families. Most of the time, those families are making those decisions because they're thinking into the future about their children. We're not doing that in this budget. As a matter of fact, the only thing we're thinking about in this budget for our children is how much we're going to put on the back of them, because we refuse to face the realities of living within our means, like every family's trying to do out there today. And we're going to transfer a doubling of the publicly held debt over the next 5 years. It's going to double. And over the next 10 years, it's going to triple. And that's going to have a serious impact on us as a nation, but it's going to have personal impact on every young child out there today. And let me tell you what the impact's going to be, is we're going to steal opportunity from them because we refuse to make the hard choices today. The impact is going to be is a large portion of them aren't going to be able to afford to go to college. We know education is one of the areas that advance our society, that create opportunities for American exceptionalism, that create opportunities for advancement of all through education. And yet the things we're doing today, by stealing the money from them in the future and burdening them with an interest obligation that most of them won't earn the amount that we're going to have to pay every year, seems to me to be penny wise and pound foolish. The other thing this document does is it has go pay. It doesn't have pay go in it. It has go and pay. What it says is we're not going to be responsible for, so you, as the next two generations, you go and pay for it. We claim pay-go, but as seen in all of the documents, that there's no pay-go application to the biggest expenditures in this bill. We just take it offline, and we allow us to create all these new programs and new items, and yet we don't have to be responsible to make the hard choices about what's important, what's a priority, and what's not a priority. Families across this country last year saw a less than 2% increase in their incomes. And after a 9% across the board, not counting the stimulus, just the omnibus bill, we're going to then bump up another 7.2%. So we're going to grow the government 4 times faster than the income increase was last year, and now we're going to grow it 3.5 times more faster than what personal income has risen, and 70 times greater than what the net inflation is going to be. That's called real spending, real growing the federal government, not making the hard choices. And what it results in spite of what we call it, whether it's my favorite pet program or somebody else's, what it results in is less liberty, less freedom for the generations that are following us. You tell me a country where you can have real freedom when you have no economic freedom. There isn't freedom when there's no economic freedom. And what we're doing with this budget is slashing in to the economic liberties of the children and grandchildren that follow us. During the Senate consideration, I offered numerous amendments that were designed to make us make hard choices, allowing penalty-free withdrawals for retirement accounts to make some of the mortgage payments that the people are having trouble today, to allow us to help the mortgage. It was accepted unanimous. Not one person voted against it. It's not in this final document. Ending bogus bonus performances by government contractors and executives. Not one person expressed an objection to that. It's not in the final budget. Reviewing the budget line by line for waste, fraud, inappropriateness, and metrics was agreed. As a matter of fact, the chairman said right before we voted on the final bill, this is one we'll try to protect in the conference. Comes out of conference, nothing's there. That's one of President Obama's promises. We won't even help him do the things that he said he wanted to do. Set performance standards to identify failing government programs. Not one person objected on the Senate floor. It was unanimous. Yet, when it comes out of the conference, none of it's there. Ending no-bid contracts. Something every American knows this Congress has a problem with, because we let the favored one get no-bid contracts, the well-connected, the well-heeled. Require competitive bidding on anything above $25,000 outside of national security issues, and yet nobody objected to that. It's actually had a vote prior where we had a 97-0 vote. When it comes out of the conference, it's not in there. Protecting patients and healthcare providers from healthcare coercion. It's not in there. So we're going to pass a budget and say, you go pay, and all the things that we really need to do to make efficient the programs that we have today and to measure the programs we have today and to control some of the waste, fraud, and abuse. It's over $300 billion a year. All the things that needed to be in this budget to make sure that happens got rejected in the conference. What should the American people think about that? They're certainly not going to go out and have their plumbing redone in their bathroom without getting some quotes on it. They're going to make people competitively bid. And if they buy a car, they're not just going to go to an automobile showroom and pay the first place they go. They're going to price that because it's a necessity to get good value today. And yet we reject that as a body. The House rejected it. The Senate rejected it in conference. And yet we're not going to do it. What should the American people think about us? We won't do any of the common sense things they're having to do right now so we can get rid of some of the $300 billion waste that we don't want to charge to our children. We won't do it. Why is that? Why is it we won't do that? Is there some other reason? Can somebody explain to me why we would not want to go through the budget in a time when we're going to run close to a $2 trillion budget deficit that's all charged to our kids, that we wouldn't want to go through there and find out the waste, fraud, and abuse in the programs that don't work? And yet this conference report rejects doing that. Are we just lazy? Or maybe we don't care. Which is it? It certainly can't be that there's a logical reason why we wouldn't do that. Yet we didn't do it. Why would we not get rid of some of the... We've got $80 billion worth of fraud a year in Medicare and Medicaid. Nothing's being done about it. And then we're going to have a reconciliation process that's going to totally change the history of the Senate forever in terms of the 1974 Budget Act. And we're going to hand to us a redo of all the health care. And the health care we run today, which accounts for 61% if you count everything that the federal government's into, is the most wasteful, fraudulent, laid system in the world. and yet we won't address it. I don't want a legacy of stealing opportunity for my grandchildren or anybody else's. And if you vote for this budget without this kind of hard work that we should be required to do, of accountability to the American people to get rid of some of the waste and do what any other prudent person would do in terms of competitively bidding projects, you're saying that's okay. It's okay to steal, and there's no other word for it. It's theft of opportunity from our children and our grandchildren, because we don't have the backbone to stand up and do the hard work. President Obama's asked for this. He's asked for us to do line by line. We have an opportunity in the bill moving through the Senate to do that. What do? We say, no, it's our way or the highway, President. If you do it, you can do it over there, but we're the ones that control all these programs, and we've done a terrible job. Matter of fact, if you look at the oversight hearings that occur in the Senate and measure them compared to all the other hearings, they count for about 2% of the hearings that we have. And what do we do when a new problem comes up? We don't look to see how the present program's working and what we could do to fix it. We just create another one and charge that to our grandkids, rather than say, where's the metrics to measure what this program's doing? Is it accomplishing what we want? Is it efficient? Could we do it a different way? We just ignore it, and we create a brand new program. And this budget's full of that. So I'll finish my remarks by again saying, if you vote for this budget, there's a real question in my mind whether you actually can represent to your constituencies that you feel that their children are not worth the hard work of this body. There's also the question of whether or not what President Obama ran on in terms of doing a line by line, of getting rid of the waste, of actually measuring the effectiveness of programs, whether or not we're going to help him do that. This document says we're not. So we've taken all the common sense reforms that would put some burden on us, and we've taken them out. And then in this budget, we've said, children, we're going to be at $17.3 trillion of publicly held debt in 10 years, and you go pay for it. You go pay for it, because we don't have the courage and we don't care for you enough to make the hard work and hard decisions now to lessen that burden on you. That's what this budget's about. It's about growing the federal government at a size and a pace that we've never seen before in this country, and growing the debt to a level that's going to cripple productivity and opportunity in the future. So there's the votes to pass this budget, but the American people need to know what this budget really is. And what it is a escape from responsibility, an expansion of the government knowing best, and elimination of opportunity of the generations to come. With that, I yield back my time.